Hello everyone, welcome to the second lesson. Today we're going to be talking about the Angular file structure. Let's get started. So in my editor, I've got the project pulled up here. Now I'm not going to go through every file and folder, just the ones that mainly we need to worry about. So first of all, there's the node modules. Node modules essentially holds all the bits of code that Angular is using to make the magic happen. Okay, so we don't really need to worry about that. We'll never go into there. The source folder is the most important folder for us, and I'll go more in depth into this, but this is where the actual project lies, the actual app. We don't really need to worry about all of these files as much. Most of these are just kind of defining the rules for how Angular operates, as well as TypeScript, which you're welcome to change those if you want to, but I'm not going to worry about them. And yes, I believe that is all of those. So let's go into the source folder. So inside of the app folder, this is where all of our components lie, all of the pieces, all the main pieces of our application will lie in this app folder. And in this app folder, we've got some different interesting file names. So let's take a look at app.module.ts. Okay, this is kind of a module is one of the main pieces of our app. You can have multiple modules, but in this course, we're just going to have one module with multiple components. Essentially, we don't need to worry too much about this folder, but as we're using the Angular CLI, it's going to automatically update this to be what it needs to be. But we can look at some of the basic things in it. First, we've got some import statements. These are just importing the various pieces of Angular that it's going to need. Next, we've got our declaration. So this is going to declare every component that we create, and it's going to do it for us, which is super nice. And then we've got imports, which is used for certain other special pieces of Angular that you might want to use. Okay, let's move on to app.component.ts. So app.component is the main component for our application. It's kind of where we're going to put all of our HTML and CSS. It's kind of where everything gets nested under the app component. Okay, so the TypeScript file here, you can see it's already got some stuff in it. It's importing the Angular component files that it needs. Now, what it says right here, this is what we call a decorator. And this decorator is essentially just showing us various metadata for the app component. So let's take a look at each one. So here's the selector, app root. In our HTML file, we're actually going to have a piece that says app root, a tag, and that's where the app component goes. And Angular knows how to read that. So you can change the name of the selector if you want, but that's here. Next is the template URL. This is the file where we store our HTML for the component. And remember, a component is just a piece that you can put a little piece of code that you can put on a page, and you can have different components that change dynamically. They're just, imagine like a nav bar or the body of a website or a sidebar. Those are all different components, okay? And next, your style URLs. This is an array of the style sheets, the CSS that you want to use. You can have multiple style sheets if you want. I'm just going to use the built-in ones. But you can see all of these files are over here. So if we take a look at the HTML, it's already got something running, and we're going to, or it's already got some code, and I'm going to show you how to see what it's doing in the next video. But all of your HTML for the component goes here. And all of your CSS would go in here. And currently we see that there's no CSS in this component. Now, the last part of this is the title. This is something that we will probably get rid of, but it's essentially just kind of naming the project, and I'll show you what it's influencing on the page in just a moment. Next, we've got app.component.spec.ts. This is something you won't need to worry about for this course. It's mainly for unit tests and things that are beyond the spectrum of this class. The scope, I should say. Next, we've got the app routing module.ts. This is where we do our routing, our navigation, and kind of how we move between different components. And I'll go more into that when we talk about routing. Okay, so outside of the app folder, you'll see our assets folder. This is where we put images and videos, things like that, that we want to incorporate in our app. Environments, don't need to worry about too much. The favicon is the little icon that's on the tab. Next, we've got index.html. So at its core, Angular is still going to compile into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because that's what a web browser understands. And a web browser is going to read the index.html file first. So if you look at it, it's pretty simple. And inside the body, we have this app root, which, if you remember, is that tag that I showed you a minute ago when we were looking here at the app.component.ts, the app root. That means it's going to nest the app root component inside of this HTML page. Next, you've got main.ts. If you need TypeScript that runs for kind of your whole application, I believe that's where you would put that here. You probably don't need to worry about that too much. Don't need to worry about polyfills. Style.css is where you'll put global styles. If you want to incorporate styling that's not part of a specific component, but part of everything, you can put it here. And test.ts, again, we don't really need to go into that very much. But that's the basic app structure. I say basic, but it does look pretty complex. But don't worry, as we go throughout this project, I hope that you'll be able to understand it more and more. And I will see you guys in the next video where we will start creating components.